The first really important study of Greek tragedy was by a 4th century Greek philosopher called Aristotle. And Aristotle thought for a very, very long time about what made Greek tragedy effective. And he actually came up with a formula, and that is that the heroes of tragedy needed to be good, but not so good that you sort of couldn't relate to them. People trying to be good, but making mistakes, like Creon. He is actually trying to be a good king of thieves. He's just not getting it right. He's making lots of mistakes. And the good guy who isn't good enough, but he's pretty much like you or me, makes a mistake. It ends in some terrible misfortune, and he goes from a status of being sort of happy and rich and content to utter misery and utter despair. What Aristotle says this should do to the audience is make them feel incredible pity for the people they're watching, which I think we certainly do in Antigone, first for her and then by the end for Creon. And also fear that, oh, if I put a foot wrong, that might happen to me. And it's those two emotions that Aristotle says that tragedy really needs to elicit.
Well, I think that the whole idea of directing a Greek play is a really exciting thing to do in and of itself. The thing that I think is most fascinating about these plays is that they still form the building blocks to our imagination. Still, 2,000 years on, we've come up with few, if any, better ways of telling a story than these very, very high stakes, compact, driven, really exciting pieces of drama. So for me, they still form the building blocks of our imagination. So getting to tackle one was a really exciting thing in and of itself. And then in terms of Antigone, I guess it's the original story about an underdog. Every sports movie that you ever see about an unlikely winner, on some level, I think, is based on our sympathy for somebody who is fighting against the system. We all know what it's like to feel sympathy for somebody fighting against the system, and really Antigone is the original story about that. So it was something that I felt had a very direct conversation to be had with the audiences. And I suppose the third thing is that it's really exciting to be looking at a play where the protagonist is a young woman. It's surprisingly unusual, even now, I think, to find a piece of drama where the person who we're most instinctively rooting for is played by the young girl. That felt like a particularly, I mean, it's odd that it should feel like a refreshing thing to do, but it still, at 2,500 years old, feels refreshing, and that was a big draw for me personally too.
We have two brothers, both of them dead. And Creon has decreed that a decent burial should be given to one and not to the other. Eteocles apparently has already been buried with full military honours and all the formalities due to the dead meticulously observed so that his rest in the underworld among the heroes is assured. But Polynices, who died in agony just as certainly as his brother did, is not to be buried at all.
A lot of theatre, if it's classical, the stereotype is to do RP, which is fine. I've been to drama school, classically trained is fine. But Polly was really excited by the fact that we've created a world, you know, really we should be speaking Greek, but we're not. So I can have my voice, and having my voice meant that comes with a lot of aggression.
I think it felt important to find a way of making the play feel accessible. What I was really keen to do was to try and work out what the play might have felt like to Sophocles' audience. So it felt like the major challenge as a director was to say, what was the gesture that Sophocles was making for an Athenian audience in 400 and whatever it was BC? So, and it seemed to us that what he was really doing was making a political thriller. So it felt right from the off that the thing definitely not to do was to make it a period piece, to make it feel like it belonged to a world that was completely separate from the political world that we know and understand. So I think that there was a drive right from the beginning to make it feel immediate and contemporary. So we had this idea, which we knew we were going into the workshop week with, of setting the play in an underground bunker. We felt that Antigone was very much a play about what had happened after Oedipus. So if Oedipus is a play, if it's a family trilogy, Oedipus is the play where it all goes wrong, where all the terrible secrets are uncovered. So Antigone definitely then becomes the play about putting the lid on that, about neurosis, repression, fear, sweeping things under the carpet. So it felt that the logical extension of that was to make it in an underground, actual underground government facility.
We did a lot of group research, which were to do with the design of the show. The show is set in what could be loosely termed a nuclear bunker, a war room, a place of safety during conflict. That is where the play takes place. So we visited similar places to that. We went to Churchill's war room in Whitehall there, the place where Churchill retired to during the Blitz. Whenever the bombs were falling, he would go there as a place of safety and also as a nerve centre to orchestrate the conflict.
From those trips and other trips that Polly had made, we started to build a system, or several different systems, that might work in the environment we were in. So there were 3 exercises. One was to do with the army, one was to do with facilities, and there was another one. I can't remember what it was. Intelligence. So the gathering of intelligence and spying on people and things like that. So we'd work out in the army one, you need someone at the top who makes all the decisions, and somebody who gives that person some information, and somebody that gives that person some information to give to that person, all the way down to the people that get the information, and the people then that make the tea and things like that. And we ran improvisations to see whether our systems we'd built worked. Some of them did and lots of them didn't. And then they slowly made it into the production. And so that influenced people's jobs hugely. And the things that we now have on the stage come directly from their workshops.
There will be victory celebrations today and singing in the streets.
Time to dance all night, to shake the foundations till the faint light of dawn flushes the windows.
Now, with both brothers gone, Creon is king. He made the most of his fortune and the god's choice. As the people rejoice, the new king enters to take his throne, the responsibility his alone.